Welcome once again from Victoria. My name is Garnet Schulhauser, and I am a Level 2 QHHT practitioner and the author of 4 books in the spiritual genre: Dancing on a Stamp, Dancing Forever with Spirit, Dance of Heavenly Bliss, and Dance of Eternal Rapture. All of these books deal with my dialogue and subsequent astral travels with my spirit guide, Albert. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the poor sound quality from some of my previous videos, but I worked hard at finding a solution. It turns out, I think, that I found the answer, which is that my USB mic was just too far away from me. So now I'm using this mic, which is hooked up to a headset, and I think that should really improve the quality of the sound. But if people out there still can't hear me very well, let me know, and I'll keep on working on a solution. So before we get into the topic for today, I'd like to relay to you a funny story that a friend of mine told me about what he had overheard on a flight recently. It turns out that on a flight from New York to LA, a hotshot tech executive was getting on the plane. He sat down in the seat, and right next to him was a hot-looking, beautiful young blonde lady. Well, this tech exec thought this was his lucky day because he had the whole flight to try to work on her to see if he could get closer to her. So the plane takes off, and the young man starts a conversation, small talk. Well, the young blonde is not very interested. She says, excuse me, but I'm very tired, and I'd like to just turn my head and have a nap. Well, the young guy's not going to give up this easily, so he says to her, well, listen, why don't we do something fun? Why don't we play a game? And the game goes like this. I'll ask you a question, and if you can't give me the answer, then I'll give you $5, or you give me $5. And then it's your turn. You ask me a question, and if I can't answer it, I give you $5. Oh, the blonde's not interested, so she's sort of turning away to go back to sleep. And he said, wait, let's jazz it up a bit. How about we do this? If I ask you a question and you can't answer it, you give me $5. But if you ask me a question and I can't answer it, I'll give you $50. Well, this is now has piqued her interest. So she turns towards him and says, okay, let's go. And so he says, I'll go first. My question is, what is the distance between Earth and the moon? Well, the blonde just shakes her head, hands him a $5 bill. Now it's her turn. She says to him, what goes up a hill with 4 legs but comes back down with only 3 legs? Well, this young man, he doesn't know the answer. He quickly whips out his tablet and begins searching on the internet to see if he can find the answer. He's frantically searching, at the same time texting some of his friends to see if they know the answer. Well, after going through this for like 10 minutes, he finally throws up his hands and says, I give up. And he hands her a $50 bill. She doesn't say anything, and so then finally he says, well, what is the answer to your question? She just shrugs, hands him a $5 bill, and goes back to sleep. That's one way to handle an annoying male who's trying to get your attention when you just want to sleep. In any event, the topic for today is, do thoughts affect reality? Well, the short answer to this is yes. And that's the answer that I got from my conversations with my spirit guide, Albert, and the information I've learned from the higher self in QHHT sessions. Now, most people during their waking hours are deep in thought. I mean, we tend to think about what's happening to us right now. We think about what happened to us in the past, and we contemplate what might happen to us in the future. But most of us think that our thoughts are just private matters within ourselves. And so when we're having a conversation with ourselves and we're walking down the street, we think it's a private conversation. In reality, we're really having a conversation with the universe. Because as I've learned, our thoughts are like waves of energy. They fan out from us to affect other energy and mass in the universe. And so thoughts can affect our reality in a number of ways. One way is that they affect our perception of reality in terms of what happens to us. So if something happens to us, good or bad, then our thoughts tend to categorize it into either, well, that was good for me or that was not so good for me. And that then affects the emotions that flow from that. So the good things, we have happy emotions. The bad things, we have negative emotions. So if you want to have a happy life, then you must focus your thoughts to be positive no matter what you encounter in your life. That way you will have a much happier life than if you focus on the negative, in which case you'll be mired in negative thoughts, negative emotions for all of your life. So how you react to things is entirely up to you. Your thoughts can also affect your reality when you communicate with other humans. We often consciously or unconsciously project our thoughts to others in a way that will affect how they react and how they make decisions. People who are very good at selling things are often unconsciously projecting powerful thoughts towards the other person to convince them to buy what they're selling or to do what they wish. Thus, thoughts can influence a recruiter to hire you for the job, to convince a judge that your painting deserves first place, or convince someone that you'd make a perfect life mate. In these situations, both the sender and receiver of these thoughts have their lives affected by the way that they react to the thoughts that are being projected. And of course, thoughts can also affect and manipulate matter in our universe. And in this regard, a focused thought is much more powerful than a scattered thought, just like a laser beam is much more powerful than the scattered beam from a flashlight. Many of the masters who have walked our planet, like Jesus, Moses, and many others who have performed what we call miracles, had merely learned to focus their thoughts into very powerful beams of energy, and that's so they can manipulate matter, learn to walk on water, turn water into wine, and perform all the other miracles that have been attributed to them in the Bible and in other texts. But as you may have already noticed, not all thoughts that we have are manifested clearly and in the way that we would like them to be manifested. This is because often our thoughts for what we desire are conflicted out by thoughts of other people, or sometimes they are stymied by our souls. If our souls feel that if our desires were fulfilled, it would send us on the wrong track and contrary to what we had hoped to follow in our life plan. Since every thought is a wave of energy, repeated waves can merge together to form a more powerful beam of energy, and thus the best way to get your desires fulfilled, although it will not always work, is to repeat over and over positive affirmations and visualizations with the hopes that eventually all this merged energy will get you what you want. As you go about your daily lives, remember that the thoughts that are swirl around in your head are really conversations with the universe. So always be careful what you think. That's all for now, folks. Enjoy your journey and remember to keep on dancing.